Welcome everybody to the New True Show, the show of personal empowerment and activation of true health. I'm host Leaha Mattinson, joined by my beautiful, gorgeous fellow being co-host Clara Apollo. Clara, welcome to the show today. So glad to have you here, that we're doing this together, my sister.
Oh, God, I love it when we play on air. It's just so beautiful to be here again with you on the New True Show, TNT in brackets, because we are providing some dynamite to blast off the BS that is around at the moment. A lot of people are finding it very difficult, including myself, to know what is the truth. And that's what this show is all about. What is your truth? What makes sense to you in your heart?
And this show came to being because of a couple of stints on each other's show. And so this natural birthing process of really how we've been able to help each other, help other people to come out of the fear really that is surrounding people and chaos and confusion. So really our conversations on the TNT show are based and inspired from the energy-based professions that we've had through our now midlife adventures, we'll call them.
We will.
Well, midlife? I'm living until I'm 200. Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and these conversations really that we've had with leading global change makers and that, our own popular established shows have brought an entire wealth of knowledge already, but kind of coming together in this synergy of how do we bring these things that we've learned and further sort of discuss them to help our audience who is really seeking the truth.
This is such a good point because we have stonking guests on our shows on Chi Time and Master Your Life. And we were finding when we were getting together and having chats that the topics that were being brought up by our guests, we wanted to speak into them more. We wanted to discuss around how is that for me? How is that for you listening? There's so much richness here and there's such a debate going on right now. And there just needs to be space for that so that there's different viewpoints, different perspectives being considered right now.
Yes, and the uptake or the learning really about that our beliefs aren't set in stone. And how cool is that? That they really aren't. And that what we're finding too is there's so much resistance in the world around change. But when we sit down and just recognize that change is a natural process of life and that we can evolve beyond beliefs that are limiting to us in our real achievement of health and clarity and harmonization and alignment within ourselves, and therefore alignment in the outer world.
Exactly. And when it is that we come into our own truth, this is a natural healing connection because our system actually knows what is right. And with all this difficulty with information and cognitive dissonance going on, it's difficult to really know what is right and what is healing and what is healthful. And on the last show, we were talking about a very emotive subject, weren't we? And on child vulnerability and the human trafficking trade and sex trade and all of that. And you can listen to that again on UK Health Radio on demand. And also we're going to release the video of that after this show. So you'll be able to see it on our YouTube channel, The New True Show. But yeah, so we were sort of thinking, what should we do with this show? Let's talk about what healing is. This word healing it's bandied around all over the place. What is healing? And we just thought, we didn't just think, we started chatting about it. That's what happened. We're like, right, let's bring some of this wisdom through.
Yes, because we're pretty practiced in grounding and realizing that a lot of people aren't, and they're struggling right now with, again, the chaos, the confusion, and when there's these big subjects going on, human trafficking, pedophilia, child sexual abuse, our own abuses in the world, our lack of reverence, our not knowing whether to wear masks or 5G or what the threats are that are coming. How do we get grounded? And so, Clara, you're going to share with our audience. We decided, as usual, to give you a tactile experience, a living experience, because people are really a lot of talk and no action, often because they don't know even what to do. They just go, I don't know what to do, and throw their hands in the air.
Yeah, and I think that knowing who to trust, who to guide you, because when you do offer guided meditations, there's a there's a reverence, there's a respect of that person is allowing you into their psyche. And so when we, do our practice, do our teaching and share intuitive energy mentoring, it is this with respect for the person that is receiving it. So, if you would like to explore a little bit about grounding now. So what does grounding mean? It is a topic that I asked Amanda Ellis on my show in the last couple of weeks. And I was expecting her to say something like, rooting down, going for walks in nature, all the classic grounding stuff that we assume is what it's about. And bless her, she said that she found that being with her family and just doing regular tasks, that was really grounding for her. I don't know, what do you think, Leah? What would you say was really grounding for you?
Yes, I would completely agree with that assessment. And again, why we should be concerned about the social isolation thing that's being sort of pushed on us, social distancing, and it's not human. We need connection. That's humanity. That's our humanity. That's our humanness. And so to be unnaturally pushed away from that, forcefully pushed away from that through threats from our leadership, then of course this puts us into a state where we are questioning our own humanity, our own connection, our own, just and rightness in the world. So we need to, again, this we'll talk further on as we get into the show about some of the guests I have, but coming back to our own stakes in the ground around what's okay for us. When this whole thing started, the coronavirus thing started, our prime minister said it was going to be, could be 2 years till we saw each other for one of the first statements. Shocking. One of the first statements. And so I called my children and said, is this okay for our family? Is this okay for our family? Is this going to be an okay way for us to operate over the next 2 years? I want you to think about that. We need to make some decisions as a family. And that was grounding. These real clear conversations, these agreements, how we're going to conduct ourselves. That's grounding for me.
Yeah. I totally get. And what I often do with this sense of grounding, taking people through a little process around grounding. Should we do something now?
Yes, we shall do something now. Let's do it.
Do something now. So what I've chosen is a track by Anu Garma called Healing Earth, which has got a frequency in it which assists you to come out of this busy beta worry, anxiety, fear thing. And it reminds you of your heartbeat. It reminds you of your humanity. It reminds you to breathe. Notice the breathing. I mean, you don't need reminding to breathe, but to remind yourself that when you bring your attention to your breath, you bring your awareness in, then you're bringing your power back to yourself. So if you can hear this lovely track playing in the background, it will help you it's like a bridging act. I often use music to bring me out of busyness and into calm. So as I said, this has this sort of this lub-dub effect. So you can take a few nice deep breaths in and out. And as you breathe out, you feel that release down into the ground. And the ground, the earth, she is our mother. We are all standing and sitting on her. She is that place of community and connection for us. And when you let yourself sink down and relax and release into the ground, you open an energetic conversation with the earth. And by that, I mean that she is ready to take any of the toxic propensities that have been building up in your system. She's a great transformer. You can let her have it. And like last week, we did some shaking, and that's a really classic way of shaking out tension. But just standing or sitting on the earth with the rhythm of your breath, acknowledging that support that she gives you, opens up that, as I say, energetic conversation. And you might find yourself softening and yielding to the power of the planet. And you feel that as you let go, you actually let go into something that is much stronger, much more powerful than anything else, really. There's an immense energy here for you, and you're sitting on it, you're standing on it. It's part of your birthright, your resource. So grounding is about letting go of the old, creating space, and receiving the new. But the key piece is letting go of the old. So just from your position, sitting or standing, and being with the rhythm of your breath, you're bringing yourself into the now moment. You're giving yourself to yourself. You're responding to that exhale, that connection down into the earth. Open the energetic pathways. You might see them as roots going down into the earth or as anchors dropping into the earth. You might find there's an anchor dropping from the base of your spine, for instance, that gives you a sense of sitting on something really strong and powerful. The earth is. And this helps to unwind the tensions that were just ready to go. Tension does not want to be held in your body. Anxiety, fear does not want to be there. It wants to, like, it shows you its message and then you let it go. But often we don't know how to do that. And we think, is that okay for me to let the earth have all my garbage? Well, for the earth, the great transformer, you give her all your kitchen waste or your garden waste, and you naturally assume that she's going to compost all of that. That's what she does with your toxic, energetic stress. It's like fuel for her to work with. You know, when I found that out, it was a huge relief. It was like, oh, great, good. I can freely relax and release down, and know that this is almost like a gift that you're giving to the earth in a strange way. That you're opening this conversation and you're letting go, and you're saying hello, and you're appreciating this ability that the earth has to hold you and to absorb and transform. Now, one of the key Qigong principles in this, I may add, is that you want to imagine the detritus, the old stuff, slooshing down like dirty bathwater down through your anchor, down through your roots, many, many miles, kilometers down into the earth, to the center of the earth, can be transformed by the fire at the center of the earth. And I say this because when you create space in your system for new energy to flow in, it will flow in from the surface of the earth, and it will come up into your legs and your feet and your base chakra and in your hips. So you don't want to be slooshing out your old stuff to a puddle in your feet, because you don't want to be receiving it again. You want to let that go all the way down so that the fresh new stuff comes up into you. And you might sense this. You might sense a tingling or warmth or something. But what I'd like to just bring in here is, as well as grounding and connecting and releasing, you're also gathering power from the planet. And you might like to sense this resonance in the the vibration of the earth that comes up into your bones and strengthens your bones. And that means you can settle into your bones, and you acknowledge how strong your bony architecture is and how amazing your spine is. Don't get me started. We'll do that another week, my obsession with the spine. But acknowledging this strength within, when you notice that your bones are connected to the power of the earth, and they're like 5 times more stronger than concrete or something. But when you acknowledge that, that helps them strengthen as well, because where you place your intention, where you place your mind, is where the energy is going to flow. So let us just take another deep breath into our bellies. And feeling that power of the earth inside of you from that rooting down that you have. And know that this place in your belly, your dantian, your energy center, is the place that gathers energy. It's like your rechargeable battery unit. And the energy from the earth knows where to go, and it will gather here, as will the chi from the breath. And this gives you a centered, balanced support space to then move from and return to. So let's just acknowledge this by saying and breathing into your belly, I am balanced. I am strong. And then I am, and something that you want to add. And now we're going to introduce a passage from the Tao de Ching. This is Leah's choice, and it's absolutely spot on. So while you're in this expanded, connective, powerful place, let me hand you over to my beautiful co-presenter here in the ground.
Perfect. Thank you. So this is verse 21, if any of you have a copy of the Tao de Ching. Perfect action, true virtue, supreme power. That is how Tao is revealed, through those who follow it completely. Though formless and intangible, it gives rise to form. Though vague and elusive, it gives rise to shapes. Though dark and obscure, it is the spirit, the essence, the life breath of all things. But is it real, you ask? I say, its evidence is all of creation. From the first moment to the present, the name has been sounding. It is the gate through which the universe enters, the witness by which the universe sees. How have I come to know all this? That very name has told me, that name which is surrounding right here, right now.
Wow. And the Tao that can be named is not the real Tao, but we have to express it in some way. And as you're feeling this power here, this natural birthright power of yours, also acknowledge that your system is entirely wired for healing. Every single one of our cells knows about balance. The relationship between the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, there needs to be a balance there. And when we get out of our own way, our systems can heal. But we don't often get out of our own way. And we would like to talk around this topic of what healing is, what self-healing is, i.e. going on all the time when we get out of the way, and how we can choose people to offer healings that will synergize with the healing that's already going on with us. And also this topic of not becoming reliant on somebody else for your healing. I think that's quite a big one, isn't it, Leaha?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think that we've had some really excellent guests on in the past week, and we want to talk a bit about those folks and how they have their practices around health and well-being also, or that they don't, and so some of them have created some, physical health problems that haven't necessarily lent them to have, enough energy in their life to do the things that they want to do, just like us, right? Just like we have done those things that maybe are not, we can have wisdom that's intellectual, but we maybe don't have the wisdom to discern for ourselves what's right in what we ingest, both, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And then when we have so much ingestion that just seems to be forced upon us through media, and also through now, not just media, but being threatened with or having to experience and live with mandatory masking. The other environmental things that are threatening our well-being, even the psycho threat, the psychological threat of 5G. I'm going to use that as an example because in some countries that's not rolled out yet, but just the thought of it is taking people away from that state of health and well-being. And so to the wisdom of all of our excellent guests, we've all had learnings in our life where we've been not that well and then get really well, but there's an intentional, there's an intent behind all this action right now, and that is depopulation and eugenics. And so those are the actual topics that people are talking about in my show. It's just like, so how do we deal with this, and why is there, we can be rooted and grounded and calm and learn how to manage our somatic system. And we also need to face the real world, because the real world is happening. We still have to either comply or choose not to comply with the things that are coming down the pipe. So it's, for many of us who've never lived in countries where there's been a war, this is the first time we've experienced this state of constant threat. And so Sacha Stone was one of my guests this week, and Sacha talked about that he was, born and raised in Rhodesia during the war, and he, his context for his life was informed because of having that upbringing, and that, now he is a human rights activist, and so he's living in the real world, and how he deals with his health stuff is that he doesn't ever do the same thing every day. He does different things each day. He doesn't have a standard practice. He is more like a go with the flow. He goes with the flow of his age and stage of his life. But what he would say, I think, is that his irreverence for what's going on around him, his certainty about what is okay and not okay for him, and not allowing people to overrun him, and being is what gives him strength and actually makes him strong and calm, is going right after those conversations that are about somebody else wanting to take your sovereignty. So for different people, it's different strategies, right?
It really is, because some, they would need to have a regular practice to be able to just drop into and work that. But you're so right, bringing it back to what your system is calling you for. And, you know, okay, let's talk about masks. And I was just down in the store earlier today, and there was an old lady there with her mask on saying, well, because I didn't have mine on, because I'm like that. I do. Anyway, and she said, she looked at me very pointedly and said, but we all have to wear them. I said, no, we don't. It's a choice. And I thought, we're forgetting that this is a choice. Now, don't get me wrong. If I was around vulnerable people and it was really freaking them out, I would just put my little scarf around me. But in general, I think it's important for those of us who are brave enough to be different, to stand up and say, I'm not prepared to do this, because number one, we don't even know if it works. We don't know if masking up works, but we do know that muzzling up the population is a very powerful message to give. Look at all those little children coming up, seeing all these adults as if it's normal that people are masked up, children going to school. You know, this is also not healthy. This is one of the things we do know, is that wearing masks all the time is going to reduce the amount of high quality air that you're breathing. So I think there's going to be problems around that. I mean, I know that the raising awareness that you can spread some diseases through droplet infection is good, but whether or not you can spread viruses, you know, are they exosomic responses? The science is coming through now to show us that it might well be more about your response to the toxins in the world. So there's so much that I feel we don't actually know. And because there's conflicting evidence coming in and there's agendas running, it's really difficult to find out the truth.
Yeah, well, it's a psychological war. And Dr. David Martin, I had him on the show on Master Your Life probably about 6 weeks ago, but he teaches people how to do research. That's what his job is. So he doesn't tell you a bunch of stuff. He gives you some things, and he tells you how to do research, and how to do research for yourself, how to vet things, and to not believe everything that you read. We had this really interesting case I live in Alberta, Canada, and the kids are going back to school in the next week. And so, of course, this whole masking thing is mandatory masking. Friends with a lot of teachers, and the teachers are, you know, having meetings now where, you know, a meeting that should have taken 2 hours is taking, and 36 agenda items, they have 10 hours and got to item number 2, because they know something's up that isn't right. They know it, you know. So the mandatory masking, also we've had, you know, the city is, but we're all supposed to be doing it. Many of us are not. So you read in the media that Western Canadians are actually difficult. That's what Western Canadians are the only ones not complying. And I'm like, really? Oh, that's funny. But it's because we're talking with each other about things. And the studies that come out, there was in Alberta, like anywhere, I'm sure all the numbers are running. The death count is running every day, and the coronavirus number of people that have this thing. The virus itself hasn't even been isolated. So the original testing kit for that virus, the fellow who invented it, it was invented for another virus. And he said, this is not supposed to be used for testing. This is not supposed to be used in this case. So I encourage everybody to not just throw their hands up and go, I can't possibly know the truth. There's too much information out there. That is, again, something we've been taught, is that we need to be spoon-fed everything. Well, if so-and-so says it, then that must be true. But it's been for many people, they have never known anything different. Yeah. So from the time you were born, you had to listen to what the doctor said, what the priest said, what your mother said, what the teacher said, what the, you know, like whoever they are. If you're not an independent thinker, and weren't encouraged to be an independent thinker and to do your own research, to think about how to think, not what to think, then you just haven't got the skill set. So really it's more looking at how could I learn the skill set, just like any other skill set, in order to better prepare myself for intelligent conversations around what is okay for me and not okay for me. And then to be prepared to do something about the things that are not okay for me. Like to not just sit back and go, well, that's okay. because so-and-so said I should just tolerate it.
Yeah. This whole call to sovereignty, you know, building your own truth, that which makes sense to you, and then being able to, I mean, it's a discussion what's happening at the moment. It should be a discussion, and yet it seems to be polarized that a lot of people think that they know what is right, but they've only sadly been given a small amount of information about it. And then you get various people being taken down of their platforms removed and stuff, when they're actually trying to offer different perspectives to the situation that would offer a proper debate. You know, let's get to the bottom of this, people. Let's run together. We're on this planet together. We're in a situation together, and only together can we actually sort this out. And it just looks like it's getting more separate. So it does bring us back to our topic here on the new True Show, TNT, with me, Clara Apollo, and the beautiful Leaha Madison-Ray here on UK Health Radio, who doesn't censor us at all. We can talk about whatever we want on here, for which we are hugely grateful. But coming into how you can heal whatever, knowing that your system knows how to mend itself if you can get out of the way, seems to be sort of totally key to everything that we're talking about. So rather than expecting a doctor to make you better, you know, doctors can only treat symptoms. They don't get to the root cause of why the symptoms are there. So it's up to us to research what's going on for ourselves, and then employ or connect with other healthcare professionals, maybe that are in the complementary arena as well as the mainstream allopathic. You know, it's this, I always thought, you know, when I was growing up, teenager, I was training as a nurse, and I was always fascinated by bodies. I mean, yeah, just what an incredible unit we have here, to take us around the world and to experience life on Earth. And I was, you know, obviously doing my nurse training. It was up in Oxford, in London, in the UK here. But I was already interested in the homeopathy and shiatsus and herbal medicine. I was aware of all of that. And I just thought, surely by the time I'm kind of my age I am now, which is like 30 years later, that these would have found a way to work together. And in some places they are. I think that is the key.
Yes. Yeah. And I, like you, I think I grew up on a farm. So I had my frame of reference of growing up with great food and people that worked hard and were busy all day and had responsibilities and took care of things that were living from the time we were really little. So you were responsible for other people's lives. It was serious what you did, had consequences what you did. So it wasn't some theoretical, abstract concept. It was, you're responsible for these little live beings, whether they're little chicks, little bunny rabbits, your sister who's younger than you, you know, so this sense of responsibility and care and concern, genuine care and concern for other living things, and also having the definite advantage of having food grown in our own yard. And that I see, 20, 30 years later, that other people haven't had that advantage. So we've got these complex diseases happening, often because the food sources are so compromised that people haven't even had a chance to eat anything good. So when we're looking from a practitioner point of view, trying to help people to be well, it's not just that people are lazy. It's like that there's these co-complex cellular biological things that are wrong with people. And so they, even when they look at themselves, go, why can't I fix this thing? Why can't I make myself better? I'm 25 years old. I feel like I'm 80 in my poor body. And it's often because they just have not had the advantage of ever having good food, of ever really moving their body. And really that lack of insight or practical world knowledge really is a detriment to them in their quest for wellness, because often people don't even know where to start until they have a reason to begin. So a health diagnosis that's crappy, where your body feels terrible, lack of fertility for a lot of young women and men is why they get into getting some sort of health started. Early cancer diagnosis, fatty liver diagnosis, but these are really extreme states.
But the body is trying to get your attention, you know, and when you do have an ache or pain, rather than being a bit frustrated with it, go, this is my body trying to speak to me, because my mind has been so busy with whatever, that we're neglecting our bodies, and our bodies, as I said, are miraculous vehicles. They will self-heal, but not if we keep them in the stress response constantly, not if the cortisol is continually running around, not if we're in sympathetic nervous system all the time. This whole burnout thing of, I was watching Exhausted by Nick Polizzi and Dr. Prejam Shojay, who's coming on to Chi Time in the middle of September, actually. She's going to be so good.
Yes.
This is a recent series, a docu-series that they've got out, just called Exhausted, looking at all the ways that we burn ourselves out. And he was saying that there was this one example of how you can test whether you're in sympathetic burnout or not, in that if it's to do with your blood pressure. So that when you stand up from being seated, obviously, if you're healthy, you won't feel dizzy. The blood pressure will shoot up. It will sort out for you when you stand. If you have got sympathetic burnout, when you stand up, you'll get dizzy. Your blood pressure will not respond instantly. It will gradually get up, but that will show you that you are in such a depleted state that even your circulation is really struggling. And so I think this is what a lot of us are in now. We're kind of used to this way of being stressed the whole time, and yet stress is what strips our bodies of all the good things, shall we say, that are going on, all the good hormones and the natural healing that kind of goes against that. And fear is one of the biggest ones, and stress and anxiety. These are the big I'm going to say killers in a way, because stress is undermining our health. It is at the bottom of 3/4 of the diseases that are happening at the moment. And we know this in our minds, but how do we actually do something about it? So our bodies have to find a way of speaking to us, and it's usually aches and pains or disorders coming up. And yet what I was going to just respond to you speaking about just a bit earlier, Leah, was that, what do people do? Where do they go when they think, well, I'm absolutely mashed out here, I don't even know where to start? And I think it's a really useful thing to suggest is start with one simple thing, and not expect miracles overnight either, but be consistent. For instance, I would say, like, making sure you have high quality water, good quality water. So not out of the tap, through a filter that's hopefully not got any plastic parts to it. Or, do your research. What kind of water filter are you up for? I could make some suggestions, but it's up to you to go and do your research. Okay, I'll mention the British Berkeys because they're stainless steel, and they do filter out 99% of everything, including viruses. So that's really good. And because if you are made up of like 60-70% water, what water you're putting into your system is really, really key. You don't want to be putting in polluted water. I mean, it makes absolute sense, doesn't it? So I feel that's one really simple thing that you can do, and that you then get a little bit obsessed about it and make sure that all your teas and coffees and stuff, if you have coffee, Exhausted's had a whole program about coffee and caffeine and how it suits some people and not others. But yeah, and washing your face in high quality water, and having a different shower head with crystals in it that it filters out the impurities, so that you're not showering in sort of chlorined water. All these I think we just have to look at where the toxicity is coming in, and where we can arrest that, and how we can take back our power and go, no, I'm going to give myself high quality water. So I'm wondering if you've got another simple suggestion that you could make to people that would be a shift for the very much better, shall we say?
Well, two things. I think that write this down, because I always get people to write things down. Write this down. Stand up. Stand up more often, and write down the word fear, because fear is false evidence appearing real. And so fear is not a real thing. And we create this big stories about what's going to get us, the boogeyman and whatever else. Most of the time it's a fallacy. Our body needs water. Agreed. Check. You can live many days without food, but you can't live too many days without water. And for sure, you can't live even 60 seconds, most people, without breathing. So I would always go back to breathing. It's like, even if you don't have very much water, or the quality of your water is not that great, don't fear yourself into death in a state of anxiety because you've not got whatever thing, the mineral, the crystal, the all of that stuff is so not to say that that's not good, but it's also going, don't get yourself into a tizzy about not being able to pick up a nice big citrine rock somewhere that's got, the best quality of crystal and all this wonderful stuff. You're still a magnet all the time for you're always magnetic. You're always healing. Your body's always healing, whether you're conscious of it or you're not, just like your heart is beating, just like your breath is happening. And really take a moment to think about that with reverence. Like, this body is amazing. It's amazing, amazing. And so we do all this crazy stuff to throw trash in it, at it, including mind trash, saying that whatever we're doing isn't enough almost all the time. So being grateful, being grateful for the things that you are doing, and do stand up, move your body around. So much, again, too, that's looped back to what's happened with many people in the last several months. Don't go outside and walk. Absolutely, this is an agenda to kill you, people. So it's like, don't people say, I feel like I'm in a prison. Okay, write this down. You are in a prison. It's not a like anymore. This is, you are in prison. When you allow somebody else to tell you that you cannot walk outside, that is a basic human right that we have. We even have it in Canada where it gets to be -40. They don't tell us you have to stay inside when we're going to freeze our beep off. It's like, get out there and go for a walk. So it's ridiculous, and it is killing people, little people, keeping them inside. Like, this is ridiculous. And it's like common sense. Get your, out of the chair, get outside, go for a walk. Don't tell everybody. If you're worried about your neighbors ratting on you or whatever people are now encouraged to do to each other, which is also inhuman, and is psychologically an operation to divide and conquer, then you mind your P's and Q's, stop yakking about other people, stop being a gossip, stop phoning in on your neighbors. Ask yourself why you're okay with wearing a mask, instead of looking at other people and going, oh, I can't believe they wouldn't wear a mask. Look at yourself and say, why are you okay with that? What part of you has got so indentured to some other person's idea of, it's actual slavery. If you want to look up what slavery is, take a look at that, because this is what this is. It's not kind of like slavery. It's not kind of like prison. It is a prison that they are suggesting we live in. And so your government is not yet, you got to know this. So this is part of your reverence and going, I'm standing up for myself as my sovereign self. And I am going to advocate for my health and wellness. This is one of the things that Satya brought out in our interviews. I'm so grateful as the reminder. But when the World War II was over, there was the Nuremberg trials. And the outcome of the Nuremberg trials really was that no matter what anybody else says, 99.999% of people on the planet can agree and acquiesce to wearing a mask. But if you don't want to do it, you in your sovereign state don't have to. And so encouraged everybody to go back to that Nuremberg trials, print out for yourself what came out of that. That's international standards, international protocols. Arm yourself, print that out, laminate it, put it in your pocket, see what it says is actually your rights. And when somebody comes to your door to tell you what to do, pull it out and say, what's your name and registration number, sir? I'd like it, because I'm going to sue you for going against what is my actual rights internationally. And so this for me is empowering. Get up from your desk, get yourself informed, protect yourself, realize what is your sovereign right when you're existing in this planet. And don't tell yourself a bunch of fallacies and get back to sleep with, it's like I've seen my friends too, also going, well, it's okay if we just wear it for a little while. It's okay. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad to have to wear it for a little while. But is it? Isn't it? Like, these are things to think about. And if it's not okay for you to wear a mask, then don't pack one. Like, if you're not okay with it, don't bring one with you. Like, that's a funny thing I think people do too, is I'll bring one. And then you actually have to go back to that self that's not that confident, because you've got it in your pocket. So you've given yourself a ticket out. versus going, actually, this is not okay for me. There's no scientific evidence. I need to get smarter about arguing my point when people say to me, I'm putting my grandma at risk. You're going to kill my grandma. Well, then I better get smarter about how I'm going to actually say that conjecture is incorrect. And so then you're called upon in your sovereign self to get more intelligent. Like, we're not put here on this planet to become more imbecilic.
You would think, and there's so much information out there for us to gain.
Yes.
But there's all this spurious information about the mask. It depends who you talk to. You can get backup for any argument, it seems. But and we don't want to make other people sick, of course not. But the thing is that there is absolutely no proof that this is going to be the way to help people be healthy, because the way to help people be healthy is help them step away from fear and anxiety. Yes. And grow their own food. That's a really good thing. But also be have fun. I mean, I went to something called a wild camp at the weekend. We're not allowed to call it a festival. There were 300 people there. And everybody had a certain amount of respect in a way, but there was no masks. There was none of that ridiculous behavior. And it was so heartening. The conversations, the children running around in this natural environment. We were all outside. There was plenty of room for anyone. If anybody wanted to physical distance, they could. If they wanted to come into community, they could. There was a personal decision made in the field, literally, as to what felt right. And everyone was healthy there anyway. It was like, this is normal community. And it was so heartening to experience that again. And how dare that be taken away from us? That right and freedom to be in community with other people, to build our new earth together, to, find ways through together and not blindly get feared and anxious about things that are just being. Yeah, there's a big, massive experiment going on at the moment. And you said earlier on, there's a depopulation agenda occurring. And, one isn't allowed to talk about, suggesting that people have a certain amount of children per family, because that could be a racist comment and all of that. But actually, I think we need to look at population in a much bigger way. Not the culling of population, but the sensible managing of the people that are already here, the ones that are already on the planet, the children that are already here, taking care of them. I mean, our last show, I won't go on about it, but do watch it. It's going to be up on our YouTube channel, The New True Show. We were speaking a lot about child vulnerability and how when a society doesn't care for its children, it's a sick, insane society. I'm sorry, but that is what we're having to deal with at the moment. There's a lot of sickness and a lot of insanity about, and yet there's a lot of compassion and kindness and intelligence. And we need to find those connections of truth in ourselves and with others.
And we see it when we see it happening around us, to actually say something about it. When we see these things happening that are not awesome, one of the things, and especially in terms of this whole pedophilia thing, I had just have had so many conversations about this in the last few years. Well, probably last 30 years, honestly, because I was a child and youth care worker for a youth counselor for a school division 30 years ago. Do the math on that. Wow, that's a long time. But sexual abuse of young people has been around for centuries. And that we don't say stuff when we see it in the moment is our own lack of or a disconnection from ourselves and our humanity. So when we see somebody in the playground that's looking at children in the wrong way or making comments that are dirty, instead of actually what I see people do is they take their kid and say, okay, honey, let's go, sweetheart. Instead of actually turning to the person that's saying the stuff and say, shut your yap, you creep, and get out of here. I'm going to call the police. Like, that's actually would be normal. Instead of, we're going to hurt our kids out of the playgrounds. The playgrounds aren't safe. The playgrounds aren't safe because we haven't called these people on their disgusting behavior. We allow it. And so why is that? Well, because we're trained to tolerate other people's crazy. And we've done it in my family. We've been taught through it, through the church, that it's okay when somebody gets abused, then you got to sit with them for the next 50 years at every holiday. And that's not just in the Catholic Church, that's in every faith. Oh, that's okay that Uncle so-and-so abused me. I still am going to go to Thanksgiving and Easter and Christmas and what?
Then all this
Right.
trauma that is produced
Just,
from that, and the
yeah,
healing that and the body can heal, the mind can heal, but my goodness, the amount of therapy sessions, or
right.
it's massive. And I think, we started talking about the show about how we're all wired to heal. We can heal, but
Mm-hmm.
really there are some traumas that can be removed. There are some traumas that do not need to happen, like children. They rely on us adults to take care of them, and that you see throughout nature.
Right.
That is not
Yes.
something weird. Children rely on us to take care of them, and that is a fundamental truth. And if that is not happening, something is very, very wrong.
Right.
So
Yes. And so one of the things I think that when we talk about what our practices or what our beliefs are and how they've evolved over a span of time, this is why we have these conversations. So if you've got, if you've been in your family and trapped with something that you don't feel that proud about, for example, like let's say you didn't protect your children and you should have done better, or you feel like you should have done better. And now you're having this wisdom of going, gee, I wish I would have done a better job, whether that's from sexual abuse, whether that's from the stuff they've watched on TV that hasn't been that good for them, whether that's the food that they've eaten, or that maybe you've not been around. Maybe you've been a distracted parent because, again, we've been indoctrinated to be busy, that you don't have any value unless you're busy.
yeah.
If you're not making however much dollars a year, you've got no value. And so we're honestly really pulled away from being good parents and being good grandparents. It's a constant pull. And this, if that is part of your understanding, that your belief system is switching now to go, I want to be a better parent. I want to be a better grandparent. I want to be a better man. Women are rising up and crushing some of the creatures that are coming out of the woodwork because the men aren't here. It's like, where are you guys?
I've been hanging out with some. I've been hanging out with some sacred men. They're brilliant. They're
Good.
brilliant. They're really good fun. And so
Bring more of those out.
It is happening. Yes. We do want this. And oh my goodness, I think we're going to have to carry on this conversation on our next episode of The New True, which is going to be the 7th of September.
Yes, indeed.
And how can people get in touch with you, lovely, if they want to kind of carry on chats or come into your wisdom, do some sessions?
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit first about our Patreon site, because that is one way that they can connect with both of us.
Sure.
So just love to invite people, if you enjoy the show, if you want to become a supporter of the show, that you can come to Patreon. And you just type in Patreon, The New True Show, The New True, and you'll find us and you'll see us. If you can see a little redhead and a blondie, that's our little logo. You'll see us on a rocket ship, TNT. We look very cute, just like in real life. And how Patreon works is by supporting creators you love on Patreon. You're becoming an active participant in their creative process. As a member, you receive exclusive content, community access, behind the scenes updates, and the pride of fueling work that matters in the world and matters to you. So we'll just say thank you so much for anyone who decides to join us on that. Fun and games and the shenanigans. So there's some Q&A, some live time with us, and all other kinds of good offerings. And that's probably the easiest way to actually get a hold of me at this moment. Of course, you can look me up, Leaha Mattinson, leahamattinson.com, all my social media. The TNT show, we have our own little Facebook stuff going on, so you can get in on the ground floor of all that. Be a founding member, be part of this.
I love that.
Yeah,
exactly.
The New True Crew.
The new True Crew is growing, and I know that. Let's give a shout out to Emily, who has helped us behind the scenes. She is also part of the New True Crew, currently winging away to London, but she'll be back. We've got plans. So yeah, that is a good place for you to come into, because we're going to be dropping links in there. We're going to, everything we're talking about on the show here, you're going to get connections in on our Patreon site. So head over there, or for me, it's the Chi Time Radio on Facebook, or Chi Time TV on YouTube. So that seems to be a little bit of a rocking channel that's happening at the moment. And of course, we're building up our own The New True Show channel too. So come and say hello. We would love to, even if we've triggered you and you're feeling really angry about some of the stuff that we're talking about, we want to hear from you as well.
Yeah.
Let's open the discussion. You know, we are all here to share the truth that we have so far, and to help us sort of find out what that really is, how we can embody our truth and then move forward from there. So yeah, I mean, we just have to continue this next time, won't you? Who have you got
Yes.
next on
Yes.
your show then? Who's next up for you?
Well, actually, some very super cool. I'm live streaming David Icke
I
on
know you
September
are.
9th. So that
Okay,
will
so that's
be a mind-blowing conversation. And for those of you who want to see that, or to check out the last interviews with Robert David Steele, Sacha Stone, and Dr. David Martin, there's
Martin.
lots of there. But Leaha Mattinson on YouTube, Leaha Mattinson Master Your Life on YouTube. You can find that all there and get connected. But I'm really excited about David. Of course, David's been deplatformed off of everything.
Many times.
So he's not on YouTube. He's not on, And so this, when people go to me, that's not really happening. It really is happening. It really is happening. This deplatforming thing really is happening to people who are very credible. And honestly, what's disturbing about it most is that our freedom of speech is being censored. Like, what in the world is going on here? Did you ever think you would see a time, honestly, did you ever think you'd see a time when people were deplatformed from communicating their...
I know. I think let's have that as the topic of our next show. Freedom of speech. I think that would be really good. Now I've got thank
who
you,
do you
Leah.
have coming up, Clara?
Oh, I've got, well, we're double bubbling. I got Sasha on my show next week. He's coming in.
Great. Yes.
And I've got, so Pedram's show day is coming up soon, but I've also got another couple of things bubbling. So I'll tell you about them on the next show. But I would really, really love to end this episode of The New True Show with a stunning track by Bliss, starring Lucinda Drayton, who's a beautiful lady. And this is called Om Shanti. And it really is reminding us that of like peace and harmony and grace and kindness can be our birthright. It is, and to remember to connect in with that, to be that part of you that can rest, that can come into healing, and that can help you through what on earth is going on here at the moment. So we will we'd love to bring you tracks, of course. So I think just now, just to sort of come into yourself, remember how we began this with the grounding, with the connecting into the earth, that we're all on the same planet, at the same time, and that how important your choices are, how important your responsibility to yourself is, and how important it is for you to say what you know to be true, and to stand up and put a flag in the ground and say, yeah, not on my watch if there's something going on that isn't right, or this is what I believe in. Stand up for your freedom, because this time next year, if you haven't, you're going to friggin' well wish you had.
Yes, and as we're going into that track, I want you to think about a grounding. Sometimes a grounding tool is really helpful too. So I use my grandchildren as my inspiration. I look at that little face of my little, and I use his name, my little Isaac, who I absolutely adore, and I can picture his little face in my mind. I hold a little Lego block of his when I'm often doing things. It's my little, and I'm showing everybody, if you're on our YouTube or our Patreon, you can see Isaac's precious little Lego block that I've carried around with me since he was 2. And so that's probably been 4 years that he's been missing this. But it's like these are the touch points, the things that help us to ground, and that to get back to purpose really quickly. And the people who are most successful at getting anything that they want in their life and completing it and continuing to hold through a succession of trials and triumphs and years are ones who have touch points.
And ones that live their lives on purpose. So knowing what you're here for, trusting your truth, and knowing that your gifts are really, really important at this time. So hey, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us here. Leah, my darling, I want to give you a big hug from the UK to Alberta, Canada.
Thank you for your wisdom too, Clara. And we'll see you all again on The New True on the
Yeah,
7th.
me too. And come across to our patreon.com on the New True Show. And we're just going to say thank you to Johan in the back room there, making sure all this knits and sews and weaves well together. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Here is Bliss with Om Shanti. Enjoy.